Today is a great day for us, the crypto investors, because the Financial Services Committee at the United States Congress is grilling the head of the SEC, Gary Gensler. And what I've done today in this video is collect 6 great videos, clips for you so we can have a conversation. If you hold crypto, everybody, do not miss this, because you're going to realize that we're tired of hearing that Gary Gensler is, for his longest time in his career, putting the biggest banks and institutions first rather than the consumers like us, the small people. And right now, let's listen, learn, talk, and you're going to learn a lot because we're getting closer to getting the Bitcoin ETFs approved, maybe Gary Gensler fired, and crypto bull market started.
You refuse to be transparent with Congress regarding your interactions with FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. That's the investigation we started last Congress. Finally, your lack of responsiveness to this committee's legitimate oversight continues to be unacceptable. And I want to finish here. In February, the committee made multiple requests for documents to the Securities Exchange Commission. This is normal congressional oversight. Yet 7 months later, the committee has not received a single non-public document that was not part of a FOIA production. As I said, our patience is wearing thin. The SEC is not above the law, nor is it unique. Other financial regulators have routinely complied with congressional oversight. So let me be clear. I do not want to be the first chairman of this committee to issue a subpoena to the Securities Exchange Commission. And you should not want to be the first SEC chair to receive a congressional subpoena. Either we find a path forward where the SEC recognizes Congress as a co-equal branch of government and is responsive to our oversight duties, or my option is to issue a subpoena. It's time for you to consider the lasting consequences of your actions, and what that means to the Securities Exchange Commission's reputation long term. While your time in this role may be temporary, the repercussions for your actions may be permanent for the agency. I yield back.
Everyone, how does that feel, Gary, to feel your own medicine going back at you, right? You're issuing lawsuits like candy to all these different exchanges, but it's good. And here's the great explanation that I'll go back to this by the end.
You refuse to be transparent with Congress regarding your interactions.
Here's the second one, everybody. And this one, Congressman Tom Emmer slams the SEC chairman for attacking the crypto industry. Let's listen.
Believe the vast majority of digital assets meet the investment contract test and are therefore securities operating illegally outside of the U.S. regulatory umbrella?
As I've said, many of these assets are basically the public is anticipating
Sir, is
profits
that a yes?
based on the efforts of others.
Is the answer then yes?
Again, without prejudging anyone, I do think that the significant
Reclaiming my
majority
time.
are
I'll take it as a
investment
yes.
contracts.
And to be clear, sir, this perspective has nothing to do with a concern you noted in a speech last year where you said, quote, "Over the past year, several bank executives have shared their concerns with me about the sheer number of depositors who have moved money from their bank accounts into crypto-related exchanges and wallets," end quote, right?
The concern that those bank executives raised was that there's
Again, I'm reclaiming my time,
customers were
sir.
getting
No,
hurt.
I've asked you to answer the questions as short as I can so I can use the time I have, and it's clear that you would like to avoid answering the questions, in my opinion. An Obama-appointed judge in the Southern District of New York, a bank-friendly jurisdiction where you bring most of your cases, recently found that decentralized financial technology, quote, not only removes the so-called middlemen from these transactions, but it also allows users to interact through a variety of methods in an easy and efficient manner, end quote. The court also said underwriters, like the ones at banks where you work, sir, are, quote, precisely the types of individual roles that decentralized exchanges were designed to eliminate, end quote. Mr. Gensler, can you assure this committee that your style of regulation by harassment towards digital asset innovation is to the benefit of every American and not driven by your desires to protect industry incumbents?
This is a field that's rife with fraud and manipulation, and I'm looking out for the American investors who've been hurt by the crypto.
Yeah. I'll reclaim my time. Mr. Gensler, despite your years of rhetoric, like today, I'm convinced you are not an impartial regulator. Instead, it's clear that you are working to consolidate your own power, even though it means crushing opportunities for everyday Americans and, frankly, the financial future of this country. Even the federal courts are highlighting the damage you, sir, are doing to our constituents, and they're telling you that you don't have the legal authority to accomplish your goal of squashing competition in the financial markets. Congress has been telling you that too. Now, Mr. Gensler, I believe our great financial system is the definition of freedom in this country. And congressional policies must provide room for the traditional financial system to evolve alongside the disruptive digital asset ecosystem. That said, it cannot be understated that a common theme throughout your career, sir, is your relentless loyalty to the largest financial institutions at the clear expense of innovation, competition, and everyday Americans. I yield back.
I suspect some large financial institutions
Let
would
me
not
yield
agree
back.
with that.
You hear that, everybody? Obviously, he has an agenda, but I'm happy to see some great Congress people on behalf of us. Because how many more exchanges you want them to leave the United States before the SEC does something positive and bring innovation? Because they're leaving, they're getting out overseas. This is the third one, everybody. The SEC chairman Gensler says Bitcoin is not a security, but refuses to say it's a commodity. This is a good one.
Easy softball into harder questions. Do you think Bitcoin is a security?
No, I think I've said this in the past that I think that it doesn't
I'm asking you
meet the
to
Howey
answer
test.
my question now. This is not supposed to be hard.
I know. I said it
Just
does
to
not
answer-
meet the Howey test, which is the
Okay.
law of the land about being an
So
investment
it doesn't meet the
contract
Howey
and
test.
security.
So therefore, it's a commodity. Is that fair?
I would say it's not a security, and then the test is otherwise for other
Okay.
laws.
But
Met
your
that.
view on Bitcoin, you've made comments on this.
So at least he said something, but barely. We move on to U.S. Congressman calls to fire the SEC, Gary Gensler chair, citing abuse of power and pushing woke politics agenda. This is another good one.
And social agenda, and I think abusing your role in the authority of the SEC as cover. So, I think fundamentally, the SEC Stabilization Act would remove the role of chairman. It would preserve the current commissioners, but it would add a sixth commissioner. So there would be no more than 3 from any one political party. And so that would provide a path that would make the SEC do what you're avoiding. Frankly, you're front-running Congress, you're front-running the courts, you're front-running even the own administration, and no one has held you to account for that. I mean, I wish the Biden administration would say you're fired, but the list of folks they need to do that for is long. Congress hopefully will with the SEC Stabilization Act. I yield.
Gentleman's time's expired.
Obviously, Biden is not going to fire his butt, not to say the other word, but guys, we want him fired. That's what hashtag fire Gary Gensler is trending. Not right now, but it is today. Another one, the SEC Gary Gensler refuses to say if the SEC will approve Bitcoin spot ETFs, which do you know how I feel about this one? Once approved, we run.
Urging you to approve the listing of spot Bitcoin ETPs after your recent loss in court to Grayscale. Now that the SEC has the court's decision in hand, rejecting your rationale for denial, does the SEC plan to approve the current pending spot Bitcoin ETF applications?
Thank you for your letter. I did read it last night. Again, we're still taking this under advisement. It's a recent court action, and staff and commissioners will take it up as appropriate.
The court concluded that the SEC's denial of Grayscale lacked, quote, a coherent explanation and then, quote unquote, falls short of the standard for reasoned decision-making and then was, quote unquote, arbitrary and capricious. How do you explain the SEC's actions there?
We do that which we do under the law as best we can. Sometimes things go into court. We're still considering that court decision. I think it was a district court. I'm sorry, it was appellate court. It was appellate court, but we're still considering that appellate court decision. And I don't want to get ahead of the staff or my fellow commissioners.
Well, everybody, he cannot say, yes, we're going to approve it. He has an agenda. But once that no becomes a yes, oh boy. And last but not least, we heard from him, but this is a guy who says he is not a government of one. And that's I believe something great to hear, because once that's officially a law for the SEC, we're gonna be in much better hands.
So far today, SEC Chair Gary Gensler is going to testify before the House Financial Services Committee. And boy, does he have a lot to answer for. Under Gary Gensler's leadership, I would say failed leadership, the SEC has been an incompetent cop on the beat. Throughout his career, Gensler has been relentlessly loyal to the biggest institutions at the expense of everyday Americans. Today, he's going to face some important questions about that. Gary Gensler has worked to consolidate his own power, even though it means crushing opportunities and, frankly, the financial future of this country. This strategy hasn't been successful for him. As you note, the SEC continues to lose again and again in the courts on its crusade against digital asset innovation. So it should be increasingly obvious that the crypto industry is not an industry rife with non-compliance. Rogue bureaucrats like Gary Gensler are supposed to be working for the people, not reigning over them. I, for one, would like to see the SEC return to its mission and make sure that they protect opportunities for every American who wants to participate in the greatest capital markets in the world. Digital asset innovation is an important part of that. Despite what Gary Gensler thinks, he is not a government of one. He is a bureaucrat who answers to Congress, and I look forward to having him before our committee.
Everybody, by now you got it. I got it. Once this guy leaves, I think we're going to be much better territory. But as long as he is in power with the SEC, and as long as Biden is in the administration, White House, and as long as we have a lot of people not doing their job properly, the financial services in the United States with the blockchain and crypto industry is at a risk of just taking longer for a boom. As we wait, other countries and regions in the world are taking advantage of that and just claiming all their time and claiming all this important human capital to go and work for them. Imagine how many people left the US because they couldn't find an opportunity. How many companies, honestly, have to close down operations. And I've seen many of them in 2022, 2023, despite the worst that we saw in 2022 with FTX, with Terra Luna, and with other different ones, Celsius, BlockFi, and more. Obviously, that was created in part with the inflation and the increase of the federal funds rate, but also poor management and fraud. But it was mainly this excuse by the SEC. But now, as we're getting past that, we need clear, competent, and welcoming innovation first agenda. And that's what the SEC needs to understand. Like he said, going back to the main mission. Thanks for watching, everybody. You've been updated. This is what happened today in Congress, and hopefully the days are counted for Gary Gensler. Like and subscribe. Take a look at the links down below. My name is Oscar Ramos, and you've been updated. Peace.